The red grease pencil rolled across the glass conference table and tapped Mara Ellison's coffee cup. A crescent of cold coffee jumped onto the document Grant Mercer had just pushed toward her. The stain landed beside a number $18,000 lower than the one he had signed 8 days earlier. Grant rested both hands on the table. "The roll is yours, but I dropped your pay band." Mara looked at him, waiting for the corner of his mouth to twitch. It didn't. Across from her, Celeste Wong from HR lowered her eyes to the revised terms. Dev Patel stopped clicking his pen. Mara had walked into her promotion review wondering whether Grant would approve the additional night supervisor. Now she wondered which was worse, that he expected her to sign or that he had planned an audience for it. Grant slid the document out of the coffee. That's unfortunate. The spill, the timing. He smiled, an efficient little smile that belonged on an email declining a vendor increase. Behind him, through the glass wall, people moved between the dispatch office and the production floor. Every few seconds, a linen cart rattled over the metal threshold. The red pencil had been in Mara's hand when Celeste called her into the room. 3 dangerous root gaps remained circled on the dispatch board outside. Mara picked up the revised offer. Director of Service Operations. The title was the same. So was the start date, the expanded territory, the language holding her responsible for customer retention, route performance, dispatch, and account recovery. Her salary had changed. The pay band had changed. The promised 6-month staffing review had become subject to executive discretion. Grant leaned back. "We had compensation do a market calibration. In 8 days? The market moves. Commercial laundry management got exciting last Tuesday?" Dev's mouth tightened. He covered it with his fist and looked toward the plant. Grant's smile held. That was one of his gifts. He could take a jab without showing the bruise. "The original figure put you above the approved band. You approved it. Before finance finalized the structure." Dev looked up. "I wasn't asked to finalize a structure." Grant turned his head slowly. "Compensation structure, Dev, not operating finance." "Right." Dev clicked his pen once and set it down. Mara read the first page again. Harbor Textile Services washed and moved nearly 400,000 pounds of linen in a busy week. If a downtown hotel added a banquet, if an assisted living group lost an elevator, if the hospital needed isolation gowns before dawn, numbers changed between breakfast and lunch. Pay bands did not drift $18,000 over a weekend. "What happened to the offer we signed?" she asked. "This replaces it." "I haven't signed this. That's what we're here to do." Celeste finally looked at Mara. Her face gave away little, but her right thumb was pressed against the edge of a closed gray folder. "You can take time to review any change in terms." Grant glanced at her. "Of course. I assumed we'd finish today because Mara begins the role Monday. I began doing the role 3 months ago, and this recognizes that. At a discount. The linen cart outside hit the threshold hard enough to make the glass tremble." Grant's eyes flicked toward the sound, then returned to Mara. He knew about the condo. He had asked how the refinance was going while they stood beside the coffee machine 2 weeks ago. At the time, his concern had felt almost brotherly. Mara had told him the truth. She had bought out her former husband's share and now owned a pleasant 2-bedroom place with a mortgage that could swallow half a paycheck if she stared at it too long. Grant tapped the revised salary with one finger. "This is still a significant increase. For significantly more responsibility. It's a director title. A title has never taken an emergency route to Mercy General at 4 in the morning. That's why we're promoting you." Mara set the pages down. The red pencil lay near her wrist, its paper wrapper softened by years of sweat and machine heat. She picked it up and placed it carefully across the signature line. "I'll begin under the offer we already executed." Something shifted behind Grant's eyes. It wasn't anger yet. It was recalculation. "Mara," he said, quieter now, "we're trying to build a leadership team that can be flexible. So am I. That's why the staffing review was in the offer. This isn't an adversarial conversation. You changed the agreement and brought witnesses." Dev reached for his pen again, thought better of it, and folded his hands. Grant looked to Celeste. "Can you explain the process?" Celeste opened the gray folder. "A revised offer requires acceptance. Mara may review it and respond." "I'm responding," Mara said. Grant watched Celeste for half a second too long. "And the prior version?" "Is in her personnel file." There it was. Grant's gaze returned to Mara. He had noticed resistance. Now she saw him measuring its weight. He gathered the revised pages, aligned their corners, and pushed them back across the table. "Take the weekend. We'll talk Monday after everybody's had a chance to get out of the room and lower the temperature." "My temperature's fine." The coffee would disagree. Dev made a sound that might have been a cough. Mara lifted the wet pages. The crescent-shaped stain had blurred part of the new pay band, but the lowered salary remained perfectly clear. Outside, her 3 red circles were waiting. The first root gap had already turned into a failure. Luis Mendoza stood at the dispatch counter holding a handheld scanner like it had personally betrayed him. At 57, he had driven for Harbor long enough to remember paper manifests, cigarette smoke in the cab, and a plant manager who solved arguments by throwing clipboards. He had survived all 3. "You circle my route in red," he told Mara, "and then you disappear. I was receiving a generous opportunity. Congratulations, Mercy's short 12 carts. Then I withdraw my congratulations." She put the revised offer face down beside her route binder. Around them, the dispatch room smelled of hot cotton, diesel drifting in through the dock doors, and the burnt popcorn someone on second shift kept making, despite repeated social pressure. A dispatcher named Nia Brooks rolled her chair over. Tunnel 2 ran slow after the rinse alarm. Packing filled the Mercy carts with whatever cleared first. Whatever meaning. Sheets and bath blankets. Their missing gowns. Mara turned to Luis. "What did their dock receiver sign for?" 12 carts short. I wrote a red M on the tags they rejected. The red grease pencil system had begun before Mara joined Harbor. Drivers marked reusable route tags when reality disagreed with the electronic manifest. M for missing pieces, V for volume change, W for waiting time. Management tolerated the marks because washing removed them eventually. Mara liked them because machines recorded what they were told, while irritated drivers recorded what happened. "Where are the rejected carts?" Bay 6. "Nia, move the Easton Hotel pickup to Calvin's return leg. He'll complain." "He's already complaining about something else." "Good. We won't interrupt his rhythm." "Luis, take the 2 clean gown carts in reserve. I'll call Mercy and give them the split delivery time." Grant came through the dispatch door while she was moving magnets on the route board. "Mara, a word." She kept her eyes on the board. "If I don't close this gap, Mercy's evening distribution misses gowns. That's your current responsibility." "And Monday?" His eyes moved to the revised offer lying face down by her binder. "We'll clarify Monday." He left with the controlled pace of a man who never slammed doors because he preferred people to imagine him capable of it. Luis watched him go. "That congratulations still active?" "It's being market calibrated." He grinned, showing the small gap between his front teeth. "Those people find a fancy phrase. They work it like a rented mule." Mara handed him the reserve cart seals. "You have enough legal hours for the second run?" "I do if Mercy unloads me before 6. I'll make sure they do. See? Director already." The joke landed closer to the bone than he intended. He saw it and busied himself clipping the seals to his belt. By 6:15, Mercy had its gowns. By 7, the Easton pickup was back at Harbor. Calvin complained with such stamina that Nia bought him a vending machine honey bun just to occupy his mouth. Mara stayed until the last carts cleared the dock. Then she carried her route binder and the stained revised offer to the parking lot. Her car was a 9-year-old blue Honda with a heater that produced 2 settings, soup and accusation. She sat behind the wheel without turning it on. Inside the binder, behind a plastic sleeve holding the quarterly route map, was her copy of the original offer. Grant's signature appeared above his printed name in dark blue ink. Hers sat below it. The salary was the agreed amount. The staffing review was written plainly enough that no one could mistake it for a wish. She had negotiated it at the same glass table 8 days ago. Grant had seemed almost happy then. He'd brought in coffee from the place with the good cardamom rolls, though he'd eaten most of hers while describing the position. Harbor was entering a delicate year, he'd said. Raymond Mercer planned to step back after 34 years and transfer ownership to Grant and Tessa. The lender wanted stronger margins, cleaner reporting, and proof that major accounts would stay. "We need somebody who understands the space between the spreadsheet and the loading dock," Grant had told her. "That space is usually full of wet towels. That's why I need you." She had known the offer mattered beyond the money. 6 years earlier, Harbor hired her as a route analyst after a national uniform company eliminated her department. She arrived with one cardboard box, a cheap blazer, and the private conviction that unemployment had exposed something fraudulent in her. Harbor cured that slowly. A route improved, a client stayed. Drivers began calling her before they called their supervisors because she listened to the whole problem before reaching for the convenient part. Then came the chemical feed failure. A dosing valve stuck during the overnight wash, leaving a sharp alkaline residue in 3 loads headed for Mercy General. The plant sensors showed normal because the faulty valve reported the command it received, not the chemical it released. Mara noticed 2 experienced folders rubbing their wrists and stopped the loads before shipping. She traced every exposed cart, redirected inventory from 3 hotel routes, and arranged an outside rewash without missing Mercy's morning need. Grant handled the client. He was excellent at it. He spoke plainly, accepted Harbor's responsibility, and offered a corrective plan before Mercy asked. Mara respected him most when the building was on fire. He became calm, exact, even generous. It was during ordinary weather that he created smoke. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Tessa. Mara considered letting it ring, then answered. "I heard the review got weird," Tessa said. Tessa Mercer was Harbor's sales chief, Raymond's niece, Grant's cousin, and one of the few executives capable of saying weird without making it sound like an accusation. He dropped the pay band. A pause. "How far?" Mara told her. "Oh, is that a sales term?" "That is a term for when my private reaction shouldn't enter the public record." "Did you know?" "No, I knew Grant was going back through leadership costs." "After he signed?" "I didn't know he signed." Mara looked at the original offer in her lap. "He did." Tessa exhaled. "Can we have breakfast tomorrow?" "What does breakfast change?" "It prevents me from saying something stupid on the phone. You rarely need help with that." That sounded almost affectionate. "I'm tired." "I know. 9 o'clock? Delaney's?" Mara agreed because Tessa had earned more than a refusal delivered from a dark parking lot. 2 years earlier, when a hotel vice president called Mara the laundry girl through an entire quarterly review, Tessa had waited until he finished, closed her sales folder, and informed him that the laundry girl had found $46,000 in billing errors in his favor. He used Mara's name after that. Saturday morning, Tessa was already in a booth at Delaney's, peeling the paper from 3 tiny creamers and stacking them like empty drums. "You're wearing lipstick," Mara said as she sat down. "This must be serious." "I have lunch with Raymond." "That is serious." His retirement hobby is asking questions he already knows the answer to. He'll be terrific at it. The waitress poured coffee. Tessa waited until she left, then said, "The ownership financing is tighter than Grant expected." "How tight?" "He needs 2 clean quarters, labor percentage, retention, linen loss. If we miss the targets, the lender reduces the valuation and requires Raymond to keep a larger stake. And my salary rescues the company. Your salary is 1 brick in a very stupid wall." Mara stirred her coffee. He signed. "Yes." "He brought me into a room with HR and finance and told me the market moved. Yes. You keep saying yes like it's treatment." "I'm confirming that I heard you." "Then say what you came to say." Tessa flattened one of the creamer drums with her thumb. "Take the title, let the transfer close. I'll help fix the salary afterward." Mara laughed once. "I know how that sounds. It sounds like you used the family discount without checking whether I was family." Tessa's face tightened. "Harbor is under pressure. So am I. I know about the condo. Apparently that was discussed at the executive level. Grant mentioned the refinance months ago. I remembered. The waitress returned, and both women ordered eggs with the bright politeness of people hiding a knife on the table. When they were alone again, Tessa said, "Grant thinks the director title gives you leverage later. Grant thinks the director title gives him director work Monday. You could make this easier on yourself." That sentence has never introduced anything good. Tessa looked down at her flattened creamer. "Raymond built this place with Grant's father. Grant has spent 12 years preparing to run it. He sees every unexpected cost as somebody moving the finish line. He moved mine. I'm asking for time. And I'm asking why his deadline belongs in my paycheck." Tessa's answer came softly. "Because he believes you won't leave." Mara looked through the window at sunlight flashing on the windshields in the parking lot. There was the unanswered part, finally spoken aloud. Grant had not mistaken her value. He had priced her vulnerability. On Monday morning, Harbor's company newsletter hit every inbox at 7:02. Mara stood at the dispatch board, the red pencil in her hand, reading the announcement on Naya's monitor. Harbor welcomes Mara Ellison as Director of Service Operations. Grant had included a photograph from the Mercy recovery, Mara in a safety vest with her hair escaping its clip. The paragraph praised her leadership, judgment, and expanded responsibility for all service outcomes, effective immediately. Nia beamed. "You didn't tell us it was official." Behind them, Grant's office door opened. Mara read the announcement again. He had given her the title in front of the entire company. He had assigned the responsibility in writing. The salary question was absent. Grant crossed the dispatch room and placed a stack of customer escalation reports beside her binder. "Congratulations," he said. "Director." Mara set the red pencil in the board's metal tray. Grant had found his next move. She understood it at the same moment he understood that she did. He was going to make her perform the job until refusing his terms looked like refusing the work. She opened the top escalation report. The Marlowe Hotel had received bath mats in place of hand towels for the second time in 10 days. The account belonged to Tessa's sales region, the route belonged to Luis's team, and the packing error began on second shift, which still had one supervisor doing the work of two. Mara took the stack into Grant's office. He was standing at his window with his suit jacket off, reading something on his phone. His office overlooked the wash floor where sheets passed through the ironer in one long white ribbon. "I need the authority matrix," she said. Grant turned. "Good morning." "Good morning. Who reports to me?" "We covered this." "You covered outcomes. The announcement says I own all service outcomes. These escalations require changes in packing, routing, and account policy. Do I have authority over the managers involved?" "You have influence." "Influence is what Celeste has over the break room refrigerator. People keep putting fish in it. You know how to get cooperation. And when cooperation costs overtime, you bring it to me. When it requires changing a route, use your judgment. And when my judgment increases mileage, use good judgment." Mara held the reports against her hip. "I'm going to email you the questions. You can also just talk to me. We're talking now." "Then why the email?" "So Nia doesn't have to drive a truck through the gap between your answers." His jaw tightened, then relaxed. "You're letting Friday affect how you operate." Friday affected how I operate. She returned to dispatch and sent the email. It was short, neutral, and specific. She listed each responsibility in the announcement and the authority required to carry it out. She copied Celeste. Grant replied 11 minutes later. "Mara, as discussed, leadership requires agility and cross-functional collaboration. Please proceed within existing budget and organizational guidelines." Nia read it over Mara's shoulder. "Did he answer any of your questions?" "He used 3 nouns. 4, if you count leadership. I'm not feeling generous." Mara forwarded the reply to a folder labeled Role Scope and began calling customers. For the next week, she did what Grant expected, and not quite the way he expected it. She handled escalations that fit her existing service manager authority. Anything requiring director authority went back to the person who held it. When the Marlowe needed an additional Friday delivery, Mara designed the route adjustment, calculated the mileage, and sent it to Grant for approval. When he wrote, "You're empowered to resolve this," she asked whether that included the $640 weekly cost. When he answered, "Stay within budget," she sent the hotel 3 lower-cost alternatives and copied Tessa. When packing manager Ellis Crane asked her to assign 2 dispatch employees to sort hand towels, Mara said, "I can lend you Nia for 45 minutes if you approve her overtime." "You're the director." "Then send me the budget code." Ellis stared at her. "Grant said you'd coordinate." "I am coordinating so hard right now." Nia looked down at her keyboard to hide a smile. The Marlowe received the correct towels on Friday. Ellis covered the overtime from his department because his team had made the error. It was a tiny, inelegant success, but the cost landed where the decision had been made. Dev noticed. He appeared at Mara's desk that afternoon holding a bowl of instant oatmeal that looked like wall paste. Did packing authorize labor for the Marlowe correction? They did. Usually, service eats that. Service didn't pack bath mats. Dev leaned against the counter. Grant's monthly report assumes route recovery hours fall 10%. Based on what? He says your new structure. My new structure is currently a newsletter. Dev took a slow bite of oatmeal. That is less detailed than he made it sound. Would you like my authority matrix? Very much. Mara sent it to him. By 5, he had returned a spreadsheet showing every recovery run from the previous quarter. According to the finance codes, 22 of them were ordinary deliveries. She went to his office, a narrow room decorated with 1 dying succulent and a framed photograph of Dev wearing a tuxedo, while his wife laughed at something outside the frame. "These were miscoded," Mara said. "I know." "You approved the reports." "I approved totals submitted by operations. I didn't know a regular route left the plant twice because the first load was wrong. That's why fuel looks high while recovery labor looks low. And why Grant thinks we can cut another dispatcher." Dev rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Can you identify the actual recoveries?" "Some. The electronic system won't show all of them." "What will?" Mara thought of Luis's red M on the rejected Mercy carts. Wax tags, driver logs, fuel receipts, customer receiving emails. Dev looked at the spreadsheet. "That sounds unpleasant." "It will be deeply unpleasant." "Can you do it before next Thursday?" "I can start. I'm not promising complete. Complete is suspicious anyway." She began with 12 weeks. Nia pulled scanned route tags. Luis and Calvin brought in their handwritten logs, arguing about which of them had worse penmanship. Mara matched red marks to RFID timestamps and fuel card stops. A cart tagged V at the Royal Crest showed 400 pounds of unexpected banquet linen. A W on Luis's tag matched a 93-minute dock delay at Mercy. 3 red M marks revealed missing goods that had required return trips but had been charged to standard mileage. The records were imperfect. That made them useful in a way Grant's summaries weren't. They contained friction. On Tuesday, Grant came to the dispatch office and found route tags spread across the counter. "What is this?" Dev asked for a recovery run reconciliation. "Why?" "You'll have to ask Dev." "I'm asking you." Finance reports 22 ordinary deliveries that appear to be service recoveries. Grant picked up one of the tags between 2 fingers. "This isn't data. It has a route number, date, customer code, and driver mark. It has crayon on it. Grease pencil. Crayon would melt in a laundry." He set the tag down. "We have RFID for this. RFID says where the cart went. It doesn't say why it went twice." Grant looked at the counter, then at Nia and the two dispatchers working nearby. How many hours are being spent on this? So far, 11. Stop at 16. Give Dev your preliminary findings. He asked for 12 weeks. I'm asking for enough to make a decision. Which decision? Whether this matters. He left before she could answer. At 15.5 hours, Mara produced a preliminary report. 9 of the 22 deliveries were confirmed recoveries. 6 were probable. 4 were ordinary. 3 lacked enough documentation. Dev adjusted the forecast. Grant's planned 10% reduction in recovery labor disappeared. The next morning, Grant canceled the open requisition for a second shift dispatcher. Mara went to his office. You use the corrected numbers to cut the position? I use the numbers to avoid adding fixed cost. The numbers show we need the position. They show our current staffing absorbs the work. Our current staffing hides the work. Grant signed a vendor form without looking up. This is why I wanted preliminary findings. Now we know where to focus. On preventing recovery runs. Exactly. With which people? The people we employ. The calmness in his voice irritated her more than a raised voice would have. He was good at this, taking the fact she placed in front of him and fitting it into the shape he already wanted. Night dispatch is covering sorting errors, chemical holds, and route changes, she said. Nia worked 52 hours last week. And she'll work 40 this week. I removed overtime from the service budget. Mara went still. You removed all of it? Until we stabilize. You announced me as responsible for service outcomes, left the vacancy open, and cut my overtime. I closed a vacancy we can't currently support. And my promotion salary pays for what? Grant put the pen down. You had the weekend to review the revised offer. I reviewed it. And? The signed one still works for me. His eyes sharpened. Then we're at an impasse. We're at your signature. For the first time, anger made it all the way to his face. It vanished quickly, but she saw it. The following Monday, Owen Rusk arrived. Grant introduced him at the morning production huddle as Harbor's new performance liaison, a title vague enough to survive anywhere. Owen was tall, neat, and younger than Mara had expected, with clear-framed glasses and the enthusiastic posture of a man determined to have no visible posture at all. He'll help streamline accountability across departments, Grant said. Tessa stood beside Mara near the folding line whiteboard. That sounds comfortable, she murmured. Owen will support Mara's transition, Grant continued, and ensure operational decisions align with our financing goals. There it was, a new person inserted between her responsibility and Grant's approval. Owen shook Mara's hand after the huddle. I've heard you know where all the bodies are buried. We operate an industrial laundry. That phrase alarms me. He laughed too loudly, then seemed embarrassed by it. Fair. I came from food distribution, cold chain, warehouse optimization, final mile performance. Then you know what happens when a dashboard gets cleaner than the dock. I know dashboards reflect process. Sometimes they reflect whoever chose the categories. He studied her for a moment. Grant said you'd challenge me. Did he tell you whether I report to you? He said we're partners. Of course he did. Owen's competence became apparent within days. He found duplicated fuel card numbers, standardized 3 customer service codes, and caught a billing rule that charged weekend handling inconsistently. He asked good questions until his questions approached Grant's assumptions. Then he stopped one step short. He also began attending Mara's meetings, summarizing her decisions in emails, and asking her to route staffing requests through him. For visibility, she complied with the routing and corrected every inaccurate summary. At first, Owen thanked her. By the 3rd correction, he wrote, Mara, I think we should avoid over-documenting routine discussions. She printed the email and placed it in the roll scope folder. Grant's next move arrived through Luis. A hospital delivery reached Mercy 48 minutes outside the new window Owen had entered into the route system. Luis returned from his run and found a written warning waiting at dispatch. Late delivery, failure to follow assigned sequence, avoidable overtime, he read. 3 lies before lunch. Efficient. Mara took the warning. Ellis had signed as the operating manager, but the supporting report came from Owen. Don't sign this yet. Luis's face changed. They tell me refusing to sign is insubordination. Signing acknowledges receipt, not agreement. Write that under your name. You sound like Celeste. Celeste wears better shoes. He sat at the counter and wrote slowly. This because I gave you my logs? The question hurt because she could not dismiss it. I don't know. You do this place long enough, you learn when weather is coming. Mara examined the route report. It showed Luis departing Harbor at 8:10, stopping at Mercy at 9:06, and completing the delivery at 10:02. His assigned window ended at 9:14. The sequence looked damning until she compared it with the red W on his reusable route tag. What happened at the dock? They kept me out 56 minutes. Why? Another Harbor truck was already there. Which truck? No idea. Rental box truck. Young driver. Mara pulled the RFID movement report. 12 carts assigned to Mercy had left on Luis's truck. 6 more had left 40 minutes earlier under a general transfer code. She called Nia over. Who authorized the transfer? Nia searched the shift notes. Owen. Mercy reported low gowns, so he sent a recovery load. Then left Luis's sequence unchanged. Luis leaned closer. He made me late by getting there early? Mara felt the first clean click of cause-fitting consequence. She found the fuel receipt for the rental truck, Mercy's electronic receiving log, and Owen's email approving the emergency run. Then she took the warning to Celeste. Celeste read the documents in silence. Her office held immaculate stacks, 1 orchid, and a ceramic mug that said, "Ask me about policy," in lettering so cheerful it felt threatening. This warning should be withdrawn, Mara said. Ellis issued it, based on an incomplete report. Have you shown him? I'm showing you because Luis asked whether this happened after he helped me reconcile Grant's reporting. Celeste's thumb stopped against the page. I can't establish motive from this. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to establish that the warning is false. Celeste looked through the documents again. Leave these with me. 2 hours later, Ellis tore up the warning in front of Luis. He described it as a data entry misunderstanding and offered no apology. Luis waited until Ellis walked away, then took the red W tag from his pocket. You want this for your collection? Mara turned it over. The wax mark had smeared onto his thumb. I already scanned it. Then I'll keep it. First time my bad handwriting ever saved me. Across the dispatch room, Owen watched them. That afternoon, he stopped asking Mara for raw driver logs. He began requesting weekly summaries instead. On Friday, Grant sent the schedule for the lender's operational review. Tessa, Dev, Owen, Ellis, Celeste, and Grant were listed as presenters. Mara's name appeared under preparatory support. She read the line twice, then carried the schedule to Owen's temporary office. You're presenting service operations. He swiveled away from his laptop. Grant wants a consolidated story. Using my audit. Using everyone's work. Can you explain why recovery mileage rose while reported recoveries fell? I have the summary. That wasn't my question. His face colored. Grant believes the meeting will be more productive with a smaller group. Then the group should include the person responsible for all service outcomes. Owen took off his glasses and cleaned them with the corner of his shirt. You've made the promotion dispute very visible. Grant announced it to the company. He announced your promotion, with responsibility and without terms. I'm trying to help you here. If you sign the revision, half these complications disappear. Mara looked at him. Did Grant tell you to say that? Owen put his glasses back on. He told me you were practical. He means affordable. She returned to dispatch. The metal tray beneath the route board was empty. Nia had left the red pencil beside Mara's binder, along with a fresh stack of reusable tags. Mara picked up the pencil and circled the lender review on the wall calendar. Grant had removed her from the room, but he still needed her facts inside it. For the first time, she considered what would happen if she gave him exactly what he had asked for, a summary clean enough to present, and nothing that would help him explain it. She sent Owen 6 pages. The first 5 contained confirmed recovery counts, mileage, labor hours, and customer impact. The 6th defined every category and listed the source records needed to verify it. She did not include the little translations that lived in her head, which hospital receiving manager used late to mean not early, which hotel coded banquet overflow as housekeeping demand, which driver marked waiting time before the loading dock officially opened. Owen replied, "Thanks. This is exactly what we need." Dev appeared at her counter 10 minutes later. "What did you send him?" "The summary he requested. Does it explain the Royal Crest variants? It identifies it. That answer has a knife in it. The knife is appropriately categorized." He leaned closer. "The lender will ask why weekend recovery costs are up 28%. They should, and Owen will say something about process visibility. You're enjoying this." "Less than I expected." Dev lowered his voice. "Grant moved your original offer out of the active compensation packet." Mara's hand stopped over her keyboard. "How do you know?" "The salary forecast I received Friday uses the revised number. Your signed figure is listed as a pending variance." "Pending what?" "Resolution." "Whose?" That column isn't very philosophical. She looked toward Celeste's office. "Is the original still in my personnel file?" "I don't have access to personnel files." "That wasn't my question." Dev held her gaze. "Celeste doesn't lose paperwork." Then he walked away with the quick, mild step he used whenever he had said more than Grant would appreciate. The lender review began Thursday at 9 in Harbor's upstairs conference room. Mara stayed downstairs where production noise made speculation impractical. At 9:20, a chemical alarm chirped and cleared. At 9:40, Calvin reported a flat tire. At 10:06, Nia silently pointed toward the stairwell. Owen was coming down fast. He reached the dispatch counter with his tie pulled crooked. "I need the backup for Saturday recoveries. It's in the source folder. I need the explanation." "Which recovery?" "All of them." "That will take a while. The Royal Crest first. Why did it require 3 extra runs last month?" 2 volume changes and 1 packing shortage. The volume changes aren't in sales projections. Tessa's team received the banquet updates. He looked over his shoulder toward the stairs. "Can you come up for 5 minutes?" Grant requested a smaller group. "I'm requesting support." "Do I have authority to answer lender questions about service operations?" Owen stared at her. Nia began typing with extraordinary concentration. "I'm not doing this with you right now," he said. "Then tell them the source folder documents every conclusion. They don't want documents. They want the operating logic." Mara let that sit between them. Owen lowered his voice. "You know what Grant is trying to accomplish." "Yes. This financing protects jobs. Then it deserves accurate numbers. They are accurate. They aren't self-explanatory." His face reddened. For a moment, Mara saw the intelligent man beneath the liaison title, embarrassed because he had accepted a shortcut and discovered himself standing at its end. "What would you need to come upstairs?" he asked. "A written request from Grant confirming I may answer operational questions directly." "That's ridiculous. It's 4 words longer than this conversation." He went back upstairs alone. At 11:30, Tessa came down. She did not stop at dispatch. She crooked one finger at Mara and kept walking toward the sample room, where squares of towel fabric hung on hooks beneath labels like ring spun and durable economy. "Tell me you didn't deliberately leave them unable to explain your report," Tessa said after closing the door. "I defined every number. You knew Owen couldn't defend it." "I asked him yesterday if he could explain the variance. He said he had the summary." Tessa paced between 2 shelves of folded napkins. The analyst asked why a 4% increase in hotel volume caused a 28% increase in recovery cost. Because the extra volume arrived in bursts outside the planned route days. 4% averaged over a month looks small. 400 unexpected banquet settings at 4 on a Friday is a truck. You could have written that. Owen could have asked. This isn't a game. No, it's my department presented by a man who's been here 11 days. Tessa stopped. Grant says you're withholding cooperation because of the salary dispute. Grant is withholding authority because of the salary dispute. He has started a file. I have one too. The words landed harder than Mara intended. Tessa's expression changed from anger to something like fatigue. Raymond thinks we're ready, she said. He thinks Grant and I can run Harbor together. This morning, I watched my cousin make Owen answer questions you should have been answering, because admitting that would mean admitting you're already doing the job he won't pay you for. Mara touched a towel sample hanging beside her. It was thick, soft, and completely unsuitable for surviving an industrial wash cycle. What did the lender say? They want an account-level operating plan for the Royal Crest. If we can't show the recoveries are controlled, they'll treat the retention forecast as unstable. Is the account leaving? They put us on 30-day cure notice yesterday. Mara looked at her. You knew that at breakfast. I knew they were unhappy. The notice came later. Why? 3 shortages, inconsistent arrival times, and linen loss charges they think we fabricated. Did we? No, we applied the contract. That wasn't my question. Tessa closed her eyes briefly. The counts are defensible. The way we handled them was stupid. Grant wants the surcharge revenue. Grant wants margin before the lender measures it. And the account wants hand towels. They're having a regional meeting tomorrow. I need you there. Under what authority? Tessa gave a humorless laugh. You really are going to make me write it? Yes. Tessa took out her phone. Before lunch, Mara received an email copying Grant, Celeste, Dev, Ellis, and Owen. Tessa authorized her to negotiate operational changes with the Royal Crest for the duration of the cure period, including route timing, delivery frequency, and service recovery commitments, subject to a stated weekly cost limit. Grant replied 3 minutes later, approved for cure period only. Mara printed both emails. The Royal Crest's regional office occupied a converted warehouse with polished concrete floors and chairs designed by someone hostile to the human spine. Tessa presented the customer retention plan. Mara brought route histories, scan reports, and photographs of the reusable tags. The hotel's regional controller, Denise Harlow, tapped the lost charge report. Your system says we lost 680 bath towels in 1 month. It says 680 fewer came back than went out, Mara said. That isn't automatically the same thing. Denise looked at the operations director beside her. That is the first sensible sentence I've heard about this. Tessa shifted, but Mara felt the movement as support rather than warning. They traced the losses. Royal Crest Housekeeping counted linen by cart, Harbor billed by RFID pieces. Banquet staff borrowed towels for wet service stations, then returned them through a separate loading area under the catering vendor's code. The towels were not disappearing. They were migrating into a blind spot. The delivery failures had a similar shape. Grant's route redesign combined Royal Crest with 2 smaller hotels to improve average truck utilization. On paper, the route had spare capacity. In practice, a banquet spike at Royal Crest filled the truck before it reached the other hotels, forcing Saturday recoveries. Mara proposed smaller Monday and Thursday base deliveries, with a Friday banquet supplement triggered by a volume email before noon. Harbor would separate catering returns for 6 weeks and suspend disputed loss charges while the counts were reconciled. Denise studied the plan. Can you actually do this? Mara thought of the authority email folded in her binder. Within the cure period and cost limit, yes. The hotel kept the account. Back at Harbor, Dev ran the plan through his forecast. It cost less than repeated Saturday recoveries and exposed nearly $12,000 in questionable loss revenue. Grant called Mara and Tessa into his office. You gave away charges we were entitled to collect, he said. We suspended them for reconciliation, Tessa replied. You also added a Friday supplement. It replaces the recovery runs. Mara said. Planned mileage is cheaper than emergency mileage. Grant looked at Tessa. Why was Mara negotiating commercial terms? I authorized operational terms. I handled pricing. You copied half the company, so everyone knew her authority. Mara watched the cousins face each other. Their resemblance appeared only when they were angry. The same still mouth, the same slight lift of the chin. Grant had spent years assuming Tessa's instinct for harmony made her easier to move. He was discovering that harmony had limits. The lender wanted retention, Tessa said. We retained them, at the expense of margin, at the expense of imaginary towel losses. Grant turned to Mara. This is exactly the pattern I'm concerned about. You create procedural obstacles internally, then position yourself as the person who can solve the consequences. The towels created the obstacles. I'm scheduling a performance alignment meeting with Celeste. Is that related to my current role or the director role? His palm struck the desk once. There is one role. Then there should be one offer. Tessa looked down, but not before Mara saw a flash of satisfaction. Grant's voice became very quiet. Get out. Celeste scheduled the meeting for Monday. When Mara arrived, Owen sat beside Grant with a folder in front of him. Celeste had placed a digital recorder in the center of the table. Its red light remained dark. Grant spoke for 20 minutes. Mara was obstructive. She over-documented routine exchanges. She withheld contextual knowledge from a financing review. She exceeded the collaborative norms expected of senior leadership. Owen provided examples, each polished enough to sound reasonable until Celeste asked who had authority over the decision involved. The answers changed from example to example. When it was Mara's turn, she opened her root binder. She produced Grant's announcement, her authority matrix, his replies, Tessa's cure period authorization, Dev's recovery analysis, and the withdrawn warning issued to Luis. Then she stopped. Grant glanced at the binder. Is that all? It's enough for today. Celeste folded her hands. I'll retain copies. Grant said, the documents are already in company systems. Some versions are, Celeste replied. The room went quiet. Celeste turned on the recorder and stated the date. She asked Grant whether Mara was currently serving as Director of Service Operations. Yes. Under which compensation terms? Grant leaned back. That is still being resolved. Celeste's eyes moved toward Mara's binder, where the original signed offer remained inside its plastic sleeve. Then this performance discussion cannot fairly rely on authority the company has not clearly granted, she said. I'm pausing it. Owen looked at Grant. Grant looked at Celeste as if she had violated a private law. Afterward, Celeste asked Mara to remain. She closed the door and held out her hand. I need your copy of the original offer. Mara's fingers tightened on the binder. Why? Because the ownership review packet now contains 2 compensation versions and a director-level retention forecast built around your position. Celeste's voice stayed even. The lender's analyst has asked which offer governs. Mara removed the signed document from its sleeve. Celeste did not take it immediately. I have the other signed copy in your personnel file. I want yours for comparison. They match. I believe you. Mara handed it over. Celeste placed both palms over the document, flattening the old curve from the binder. The ownership review is Friday, she said. Grant will have to answer the question himself. Mara's first instinct was to ask for it back. The original offer had lived in her binder for 8 days, and then several weeks, close enough to touch whenever Grant made reality feel negotiable. Celeste saw her looking at it. I'll give you a receipt. That makes me sound paranoid. It makes you sound employed. Celeste printed a chain of custody form, signed it, and handed Mara the yellow copy. Then she sealed the offer in a transparent document pouch. Grant's signature showed through the plastic. Who else has seen the review packet? Mara asked. Raymond, Tessa, Dev, Grant, the lender's analyst, and outside transaction counsel. Mara flinched at the last 2 words. Celeste caught it. This is an ownership review, not a lawsuit. Grant's going to say the first offer was a draft. He may. He'll say the revised one corrected an error. He may. Are you going to say anything besides he may? Yes. Celeste put the sealed offer into her locked drawer. Go run service operations. Mara stood. Under which compensation terms? The corner of Celeste's mouth moved. That is an excellent question. By Wednesday afternoon, Grant had stopped coming through dispatch. His instructions arrived through Owen, stripped of adjectives and copied to Celeste. Owen seemed relieved by the discipline. He asked narrower questions. Mara gave narrower answers. At 4:15, Tunnel 2 shut down. The machine did not fail dramatically. The sheets simply stopped emerging from the final rinse while wet loads continued arriving from sorting. Within minutes, carts backed up along the blue floor line. Ellis called maintenance. Maintenance blamed the steam pressure regulator. The boiler operator blamed a valve signal. Night production faced a 5-hour delay, which meant morning routes would leave short. Mara was recalculating hotel priorities when Grant appeared beside the board in safety glasses and a white hard hat. Mercy inventory? He asked. Protected through tomorrow afternoon. Royal Crest? Their base delivery can survive a 6-hour delay. Friday supplement can't. Move Easton sheets to the old 50-pound washers. Hold restaurant linen until Tunnel 2 clears. The old washers can't meet Easton's press time unless finishing staggers breaks. I'll handle finishing. He did. Grant spent 90 minutes on the floor with Ellis and the shift leads, moving labor without creating a second bottleneck. He found that the faulty signal came from a recently replaced pressure sensor, whose range had been entered in kilopascals instead of pounds per square inch. Maintenance restored the setting. The tunnel shuddered back to life. At 7, Mara found Grant beside the vending machines, drinking burnt coffee from a paper cup. You were right about Easton, he said. They'll make press. You were right about the old washers. He nodded toward the dispatch board. You've got Friday covered? If the tunnel holds, it will. The confidence did not sound arrogant. This was the Grant she had respected during the chemical feed failure. Useful, steady, able to see the whole plant without turning every decision into a referendum on his authority. He rolled the paper cup between his palms. We work well together when you let us. Mara felt the old admiration pull at her before the insult underneath it caught up. I was working the same way Friday. You know what I mean. I know what you need me to mean. He threw the cup away. It bounced off the rim and landed on the floor. Grant picked it up, put it in the trash, and stood with his back to her. The lender reduced the transition value, he said. Royal Crest, recovery costs, some concerns about reporting controls. If Friday goes badly, Raymond keeps a larger stake and my performance units get cut. I'm sorry. He turned. Are you? I'm sorry this got here. You brought compensation into an ownership transaction. You put my compensation in the packet at 2 different numbers. I was trying to protect the transition by taking $18,000 from one person, by holding leadership compensation within target. Did you lower yours? His face closed. Did you lower Owen's? She asked. Owen came in at market. So did I. You just decided my mortgage made your market easier. Grant looked toward the wash floor. I can restore the salary after the first clean quarter. The signed offer already restored it. I'm trying to give you a path where we can keep working together. Then honor what you signed. Terms change. Before signatures. After signatures, people change them together. He rubbed the back of his neck. For the first time in all their conversations, he looked tired rather than controlled. If I accept that offer now, he said, I teach every manager here that they can force a concession by creating procedural risk. If you accept it now, you teach them your signature means something. That's a convenient framing. It was convenient when you signed it. He left without saying goodnight. Tessa came to Mara's condo on Thursday with Thai food and 2 bottles of ginger beer. She had visited before, but always when Mara's former husband still lived there. Now the second bedroom held unpacked boxes, a folding desk, and the framed prints he had not wanted. Tessa stood in the kitchen, turning slowly. "It looks like you." "It looks like half the furniture left. The half that stayed looks like you." They ate at the narrow counter. Tessa avoided talking about Harbor until she had finished most of her noodles. "Grant offered to reduce his base salary," she said. Mara looked up. "Starting next quarter, he sent it to Raymond this morning." "How much?" "Enough to be meaningful, less than the performance units at risk." "That sounds like Grant." "It does." Mara twisted the cap on her ginger beer. "Is that supposed to make me accept less?" "No, I thought you should know he's capable of understanding the point once it becomes expensive." "That isn't the same as understanding. It might be as close as he gets." Mara carried the empty containers to the sink. "You asked me to wait until the transfer closed." "I did." "You made me feel like refusing was something I was doing to your family." Tessa leaned against the counter. "I was trying to keep the peace." "You were trying to keep your position in the family." "Yes." The answer stopped Mara. Tessa looked down at her hands. "Grant has always been the operating heir. Raymond talks to him about boilers and debt and capital. He talks to me about clients and whether everybody's getting along. If the deal became difficult and I was the difficult cousin, I knew which one of us would lose influence." "So you asked me to be easier?" "Yes." Mara rinsed the containers. "That was cowardly." "Yes. You're irritating when you agree this much. I'm trying a new leadership style." Mara laughed despite herself. The sound felt strange in the quiet condo. Tessa reached for her coat. "Raymond wants the company to survive his retirement more than he wants Grant to win. Remember that tomorrow." "I'm not trying to beat Grant." "I know. That's why he's in trouble." The ownership review was held at the same glass table where Grant had pushed the revised terms toward Mara. The coffee stain was gone. A faint red line remained near one corner where the grease pencil had rolled through it. Raymond Mercer sat at the head. He was 72, broad through the shoulders, with white hair cut close and 2 missing fingertips on his left hand from Harbor's early years. Tessa sat on one side with Dev. Grant and Owen sat on the other. Celeste had the gray personnel folder in front of her. The lender's analyst, Andrea Pike, joined by video on the wall screen. Mara had expected a severe face and found a woman in a green cardigan with an ordinary kitchen mug beside her laptop. Andrea spent an hour on the transition forecast. Dev explained the corrected recovery costs. Owen described the new reporting categories, and when he reached their limits, said plainly that Mara's source reconciliation had exposed them. Grant presented the plan for stabilizing labor without hiding emergency runs. He was concise and convincing. Then Andrea turned to the retention forecast. "Your largest service risk accounts depend on the Director of Service Operations role," she said. "The materials identify Mara Ellison as holding that role, but the compensation appendix contains 2 offers in different pay bands. One is signed by both parties. The other is signed by neither. I need to understand whether the position is settled." Grant folded his hands. "The second document reflects the approved compensation structure." Andrea glanced down. "That wasn't my question." Raymond shifted in his chair. The leather creaked. Celeste opened the gray folder and removed 2 transparent pouches. One held the copy from Mara's personnel file. The other held the copy from her root binder. "Before we discuss the forecast," Celeste said, "HR needs direction on which offer governs." She looked at Grant. Mara said nothing. Grant's gaze moved across the table, to Raymond, to Tessa, to the 2 signed copies beneath Celeste's hands. He had spent weeks trying to turn ambiguity into leverage. Now clarity required only his own answer. He drew a breath. "Under Harbor policy," he said, "an offer executed by the authorized executive and accepted by the employee governs unless it's withdrawn before acceptance or replaced by a later agreement signed by both parties." Celeste touched the unsigned revision. Was this replacement signed by Mara? No. Was the first offer withdrawn before she accepted? No. Then which offer governs? Grant looked at Mara. She let him answer. The signed offer. The words were quiet. They reached every corner of the room. Celeste slid the executed offer onto the glass, Grant's signature facing up. HR will process the original salary effective on the stated start date, including back pay. The role, reporting authority, and 6-month staffing review will follow the executed terms. Andrea made a note. That resolves the compensation discrepancy. The governance issue remains. Raymond's damaged hand rested on the table. I'll handle governance. Grant's head turned. Raymond, you changed a signed offer after acceptance and built the transition numbers around the lower figure, Raymond said. That's a control problem. It was a cost decision. It was a bad cost decision. Grant's jaw flexed. You asked me to make the company lean enough to finance. I asked you to make it honest enough to own. Raymond's voice stayed level. He revised the transition structure before the meeting ended. Compensation changes for director-level employees would require Celeste's review and approval from both incoming owners. Operational reporting would go jointly to Grant, Tessa, and Dev through the first 2 quarters. Grant retained the COO role and his planned ownership, but part of his performance stake shifted to later targets because the lender had reduced the initial valuation. The transaction survived. Grant's control narrowed. After Andrea disconnected, Owen gathered his papers and asked Mara if she would meet Monday to finish the recovery definitions. Yes, she said. Bring questions. I have several. Good. Dev lingered long enough to tap the signed offer with one finger. Finance will need your bank information verified for the adjustment. You already have my bank information. I want to enjoy verifying it. Tessa walked out with Raymond. Celeste returned Mara's copy in its plastic sleeve, along with the receipt she had signed. Grant remained at the table. Mara slipped the offer into her route binder. You got what you wanted, he said. I got what you offered. That distinction matters to you. It should matter to you. He looked at the faint red streak on the glass. I thought you'd take the revision. I know. Because of the condo. Yes. His face tightened. Not defensively this time. That was beneath me. It was. He nodded once. Monday, I'll send the authority matrix. Send it to the whole leadership team. Another pause. All right. The first staffing review produced 1 night shift supervisor instead of the 2 Mara requested. She accepted the position on a 90-day trial and made Dev put the remaining vacancy into the next forecast. Luis's warning stayed withdrawn. Owen learned to ask drivers what their grease pencil marks meant before translating them into categories. Tessa became irritatingly fond of copying the correct people. Grant stayed competent and difficult. He challenged Mara's costs, rejected one route proposal, and approved another after she proved it would reduce Saturday recoveries. Their working relationship never returned to what it had been. It became narrower, more formal, and considerably more honest. Months later, Mara stood with Nia and the new night supervisor at the dispatch board. She had trained both of them to read route capacity from RFID movement, driver logs, customer emails, and the marks left on reusable tags. Nia handed her the red grease pencil. It had worn down to half its old length. Mara circled a clean week, every route covered, every recovery run counted, every delay attached to its actual cause. Then she placed the pencil in the board's metal tray and left it there.